How they've interacted in real time and gone and siphon data, C2, X.
Not quite real time.
Okay. Yeah. But basically, you use lots. Okay. And were these logs or were these files or were these traces or that you've seen? I'm just trying to learn. I'm just trying to understand.
I can't get any more.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. No question. No further question. Sir, yourself? Okay.
NDA says no.
Okay. Cool. So we're just waiting for 2 more minutes, and then we'll kickstart this exciting topic. Oh, sorry. So if you notice, if I'm on the keyboard and if I'm moving up and down, I'm trying to update my Facebook in real time.
And what I've found is typically when you start, the room is a little empty, and about 5 to 10 minutes in, the rest of the crowd will...
That's when you're going to shut the door.
Most of them are over in ABC.
Okay.
And they're like, track 6, it's way out here, and yeah,
yeah.
Most people are late because they can't find the room.
I even had the trouble finding this room when I came over here. I walked through the alleyway over that side, and then I'm like, man, this looks like the airport over here. It's like, where's this? I'm walking. I'm like, man, I hope I don't reach Dallas by now.
If you get to the train, you've gone too far.
Yep.
Gentleman in the back? Okay, there we go. Thank you, sir. The obligatory, if you are going to participate in the passport, please make sure you are getting your stamps, and there are a lot of stamps, so get busy. You don't want to wait till the last minute, but if you are doing that, the stamp and the passport is to be used in the vendor space, and there are tons of vendor booths, but get your stamps, and if you get all the stamps, don't forget to turn your passport in for the raffle. So you're going to go through all that work. Please turn in your passport. And I think with that, we are on time. I will go ahead and introduce Amar Sonik.
Thank you.
And the APT is a lie, as you can see what we're going to be covering. Amar is an experienced IT professional with extensive knowledge and skill spanning different domains in the industry, from IT technician, help desk, system infrastructure, network architecture, and information security. Since 2019, he's been an organizer for the B-Side Singapore chapter, where his involvement in the organization has provided him with valuable opportunities to network with other professionals and has actively promoted knowledge sharing and experience with others. Sonik is an ideal presenter for those seeking valuable insights into the field. With his passion for information security and his dedication to sharing his knowledge with others, attendees can expect to learn from his extensive industry experience and gain valuable insights into the field.
Thank you. See you. I got my...
Excellent, sir. And with that, I will hand it over.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you for joining us. As you've noticed from the title slide, the APT is a lie. It's so bizarre, isn't it? Why such a topic? What's the reason behind the motive? Why are these attacks happening and from where? Well, stick around. Let's take a moment to get acquainted and set the stage for our journey. But first, a quick introduction. Gentleman has already introduced me, so I'm just going to cut a little bit and just going to mention a few high points. My name is Amar Sonik. Or you can call me Sonic as well. I currently work as a DevOps engineer for a healthcare practice. I've been in the industry for about 25 years. Humble beginning spans, but not limited to being, IT technician, help desk, system administration, network engineer. And I'm also one of the organizers for B-Side Singapore. And as with any information in cybersecurity community, we are dedicated to promoting both information and cybersecurity awareness and knowledge sharing. And I'm also proud to say that we are conference partners with HUSECCon. Beyond IT, I'm don't want to be all that boring person, just be IT, IT, IT. I'm also a musician. I graduated in North Indian classical music, majoring in a percussion instrument called the tabla, and that's that. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's the that's the instrument over there, and apart from playing and jamming with various musicians, rock bands, and DJ, I also teach tabla. And now, before I go on, I want to make it clear that the information and opinions that I will share in this talk are my own. They do not in any way represent the organization that I work for. This talk is purely for educational purposes, and I'm not responsible for how you use this information that I share, provide. And with that, let's begin. So let me take a moment to ask a question as we dive into the main discussion. What is an APT? Wrong answers only. Anyone? Okay, I'll go first. For me, APT stands for always fishing for trout. Imagine the irony. Anybody else? Wrong answers only? Okay. So we went to the ultimate oracle of information, Mr. Wikipedia, which says, an advanced persistent threat is a stealthy threat actor, typically state-sponsored, group which gains unauthorized access to a computer network and remains undetected for an extended period of time. So over the course of time, the APT term has been making its round, and with time, these groups and individuals are growing in numbers. And with that, I'd like to ask, how are APT defined? How do the numbers come about? Who decides it's a name or an animal or creature or bug or whatever have you? Never mind that. Let me ask another question. Who's the power that be that sticks the label on them and say, now I bequeath thee, APT?
Government?
Better yet, let me set the argument this way. Who decides to qualify this individual or groups to be given the status APT?
The victim government.
Our APTs, names, numbers, and animal reference that we all have come to accept as unquestionable truth. Let me tell you something. There's no law pertaining to threat classification, and from looking at all of this, names, they're all a lie. But first, a little history. Let's take a look at where the term was first used. Although there's been a lot of theories to suggest it was possibly used in the early 90s, but it wasn't until 2007 in the US military where it was first coined by Colonel Greg Rattray. That's the gentleman that you see up there. Not the skeleton guy, the guy on the left. But back then, it was a way to describe enemy commando units where it was about cyber-based information, intellectual property for competitive or military advantage. Often targeted were things like defense plans, including but not limited to details on weapons, troops operation, what projects were being funded. Other forms of intelligence would be network diagrams, software inventories, information on email addresses of personnel to further existing or future cyber-based operations were also sought. Basically, the objective would be to gather as much intel that reveal military secrets that would give upper hand, which in turn would have the enemy use to either disrupt or dismantle. So taking a high-level overview over here, if you penetrate enemy cyber defenses, infiltrate their data, siphoning it using stealth C2, shouldn't you be labeled a bad actor? Why APT? So in the past, we're looking at tools. In the past, understanding attack methods, tactics, and techniques used by the APT relied on several approaches, such as incident reports, security research, threat intelligence, forensics, and advisory boards to help and determine into the nature of the attacks that were provided, that provides insight into how they were executed. So incident reports will be, where organizations would analyze incident report from their own experience or from public sources to understand tactics and technique used by the adversaries. Then you have security research. Security researchers and organizations will conduct their own research into cyber attacks, often publishing white papers, blogs, presentation detailing observed attack patterns. And then you have threat intelligence. Sorry, that came a little late. Which feeds on providing information on known threats, including indicators of compromise, behavioral patterns of attackers. In addition, there are also forensics analysts where after the attack, organizations would conduct forensics analysis of compromised system to understand how the attack was carried out and what attacks were used by the attackers. In other sources like government reports and advisories where government agencies and organizations would publish reports and advisory on emerging threats and attack techniques. And through my journey, I kept asking this question. So I turned to Mr. AI, and my question was, in cybersecurity, what framework outlines and confirms evidence or indicators of APT? And, sorry. As you can see what it says in red, while there is no specific cybersecurity framework that definitively outlines and confirms evidence of APT threats, what does that mean? Basically, what it means is there's no set framework that you can put your findings on or answers and say, hey, voila, there's a pattern match. I think we have a hit. No, I don't think so. APT classification is not a repeatable process. And because it plays and overlaps so much so that it's beyond the ability of just looking at frameworks, policies, and other areas of it. And because of the nature of its complexity, there's also the science, psychology, human weaknesses, scientific weaknesses, cyber weaknesses to it. Everything rotates over each other. And I can tell you the final answer. Anybody want to make a guess? What's the final answer? There's no final answer. There's no answer. Let me tell you, if it's that simple, we'll all have an encyclopedia for every action of APT out there. Here's a quote from, you all recognize this gentleman? Yep. Hackers are breaking the system for profit. Before it was about intellectual curiosity and pursuit of knowledge. Now hacking is just big business. So his phone freaking skills and hacking skills were second to none. To a point where, it was in the news report where people were saying that he was known to be able to launch missiles with a single phone call. But I'm not here to contest that. So here's the question. If that being the case, with all due respect, shouldn't he be given the status, the title APT but instead he was labeled the most notorious hacker in the world. So I ask you, where does the differentiation applies between a bad actor and an APT? Well, to that, here's a quote from a great hacker's wisdom. What makes an APT? The need for a scapegoat, because we didn't do our freaking jobs right. And we didn't do our jobs right because it was either a commercial or political benefit, and as the song has it, it's all about the money. So, okay, now that we've unlocked a few areas of the puzzle, I have a few more questions to add to the list. Can automation be APT as a service?
Yes.
Nothing fancy, just sliding a couple G's to the hacking group, which raises another question. Is the APT actually doing the code or the financial or political entity behind it? Is an APT a confederation because it doesn't fit into siloed norms? Because some would argue that APT are a group rather than a single individual. Recently, a topic was covered by my close friend, Len No. Script kiddies are dead. Long live AI kiddies. And here's to add to that. Can script kiddies with AI assistant be an APT? So what's to say if cognitively conditioning the AI to think and function like that of an APT, thereby weaponizing it? Isn't it a scary thought to even conceive? But it should stop right there. There should be no APT in the future. It impresses upon me that we have words to describe skills, tactics, and techniques of groups, but not very convincing while we're trying to establish who is the one that decides in giving them this label. Or like a surprise from a mere name we're questioning, where did this group emerge from? Haven't you all thought about it? Suddenly you hear APT 29, APT 36, APT 28, Fin 7. Who's the one that's giving the number? Have we just decided to accept it? So, as George Carlin would say, questions I ponder. Let me take a moment to add more colors, just to give you an idea. I'll mention a few names and numbers of some of the infamous APT groups. These are not the groups, by the way. I'll add a few names. Fin 7. Anybody want to make a guess where they're from? Russia. APT 21. Anyone want to make a guess?
Houston.
China. APT 28. Russia. 35. India. 36. Pakistan. 41. China. And then you have the Zaros group from, where's it from? They're pretty famous. If I give another hint, you'll know where they're from. Sony hack. I'll stop right there. So the APT are also named after nation state. Adversaries with reference to animal, this is relevant to the nation. To paint some examples, you have bears. Anyone want to make a guess where bears are from?
Russia.
Yeah! And then you have tigers. Where are tigers from? India, that's right. And then you have kitten from, that's not a kitten. Where do you think kittens are from? Iraq. This horse is known as a Kolima, is a mythical horse. Want to make a guess where it's from? Korea. And then panda, everyone would know, China. Leopard, Pakistan. And then so if you're a criminal, you would fall under what animal? Spider. So if you're a activist, nationalist, terrorist, which animal would you fall under? Jackal. So don't ask me why, this is all out there. I'm just collating it and bringing it to you. Again, back to my question. So where does the rule of law states that if you perform such an action, this is your classification?
I think it was the security research company that initially discovered it.
Okay.
So all their scandals discuss that, where they come up with those names. So if a nation state discovers it, and they attribute it to China or something like that, they would have a prefix and a suffix, where bear or panda would be the suffix.
Okay. So which means to say by continuing this naming convention and stereotypes, you're pushing propaganda. And then on top of that, we've stereotyped the APTs because of the IP address and that's originated from. Would you agree somewhat?
Yeah.
Okay. So FYI, APT 41 is known as Double Dragon. Do you want to know why it's called Double Dragon? It's not, it's not inspired by a famous Nintendo game. Instead, it originates more on the duality of the operations. They engage in espionage and individual financial gain. Yeah. So I'm going to change the course over here. So we've touched on the name and the groups that were previously mentioned of tracing the attacks. Let's fast forward to recent time and let's touch on the tools we have right now. The current frameworks like Cyber Kill Chain, NIST, Cybersecurity Framework. Then you have MITRE framework. Most of these tools enables you to have a deeper understanding of cyber threats, mimicking how attackers operate. And then going down the list, you have the Center of Threat Information Defense, which might have formed a collective group like Attack IQ, Verizon, Microsoft, Red Canary. And then you have MISP, Taxi Sticks, which are mainly data sharing and so on and so forth. So if APTs are lies, how do we find out the truth? Based on current technology, we have MITRE, a subsidiary of the US government, as a current option. But then again, MITRE may not be be-all and end-all solution. Just imagine this. Tomorrow, if MITRE decides that they're going to take over as a leading framework, and imagine being the entity that's been in the game long enough, so much so if they want, they can start monetizing and monopolizing it. And again, it circles back to who do you believe that can completely be transparent and impartial. What idea or ideology is globally accepted? If we can't answer this, how do we find the universal source of truth? How do you make sure that not any one country tries to leverage this the way APT has done because of lack of transparency? How about if we try, just an idea, in real-time ability that will be able to point out that there's an active APT going on, preferably something that's not owned by a single entity, or that would take, or what would it take for the nations of the world to agree to a universal source of truth with the context and aim of a united front and with geopolitics aside, to agree to a single set of criteria and have periodic peer reviews, action on it, which does not promote biasness or peddle influence. It's an aim that I foresee which may be difficult but not impossible. And above and beyond that, I don't have an answer for this yet. But there are other avenues of working towards a future objective goal. And unless there are dialogues, discussion, collaboration, there will never be a change if we don't start to address and push for no APT. I hope this creates an awareness that we've been taking direction from a false sense of security. What's the call to action? Remove the ability for monopolizing and monetizing. Should we have a front runner or potential? Its aim should not be about the dollars and cents. It should be about security. And the same criteria should be applied to all attacks regardless of their initiation, location, classification, should be consistent to attacks. There shouldn't be any taking of sides or hiding what needs to be made aware or known. If we stop doing this, we got half the battle. We need to get back to trusting the information we are receiving. APT can push the industry in one way or the other, one technology or the other, one vendor or another. But, we just need to remove the ability for lobbyists and capabilities to influence the industry in one way or another. And it should be impartial. Like I said earlier, if this is not the case, it's just going to go into a cycle, and we are going to go back to square one. Having conversation, I believe, is the way to start. And unless there's dialogues, discussion, collaboration, there will never be a change. We don't start to push for no APT now. And before I end, I'd like to give a special thanks to Len No, who's been a very great influence on me. Thank you, sir. And with that, I hope this has been informative, and I'd like to thank you all for being here.
Questions from the audience?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So what led you into this topic? Were there any cases that you can speak on where current classification of ATP has misled analysts in their discoveries, or where we could improve it to better defend against these threats?
That's a very good question. If you've read recently, I won't go so far back, but this news was just recent. There was a news article that was mentioned that a spyware had similar malware or zero-day that was similar to Cozy Bear. So that makes you wonder, why shouldn't, if you're an APT, your codes, your structure, your zero-day should be just unique to you. If you think about it, this is one of the things that made me think. My research dates far back, like 6 months ago, but this was pretty recent, and I feel this is a good example.
Is there a possibility that ATP as state-sponsored actors can exchange information between each other?
Yes, of course. Because yes, and to answer that, I feel like when you hear APTs from various different countries, it's all about the money, and it's all about the financial, and it's all about the political entity behind it. What you don't see is who is pushing, who is holding their hands, who's holding their hands, and what's going on behind that we don't see behind closed doors. I say that because the thing is, I feel looking at a news article on, say, oh, you know, there was an attack that happened pretty recent, which was a follow-up of the supply chain attack on Microsoft. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, okay, the threat actors are still there. So, which means they didn't clean it up. But why is it, so the reason why I bring that up is because why is it repeating? Why is only Microsoft having the attack? Why is not somebody else? So that makes you wonder, you know, there's always political money behind it, political entity and financial backing behind it. And we are just made to believe, oh, there is a state-sponsored group that's doing this. And we read that in the news. How many of you have seen the news follow-up of APT being arrested, being charged, being put in jail cells, being castrated? Anyone? Have you seen it with your own eyes? Arrest, taken to jail, put in solitary confinement. Have you seen it?
I mean, these are state-sponsored.
But have you seen it? Okay, here's an article. Here's an article that I just recently reading and following up. Our Evil. How many of you have heard of Our Evil? Have you seen them being arrested?
To her point, though, I mean, if they're state-sponsored, they're going to be supported by their state, their attack.
Yep, but Our Evil is not state-sponsored. So, have you seen them being arrested?
So are you trying to say that it could be a safe, we're basically just looking at the mask and we're not going after the actual individuals, you know, in terms of who perpetrated the actual crimes? We're just calling it some generic name and saying we can't do anything about it, like a blue screen of death?
I hope that answers your question. If not, you know, you guys can reach out to me. I'll be in the House of Kokan over, and I can take more questions over there. Go ahead.
So my question is, so you're talking about abandoning overlapping aliases, and because they're misleading, they're obviously kind of almost like a cluster identity rather than an actual entity that we talk about in terms of TTP. So, like, what sort of TTP is like the minimum requirements for us to abandon the clustering? Because obviously TTP can't 100% of the time be announced for sensitivity purposes.
Right.
But I've read reporting that goes the other way, or that cuts to this. Like if you read the typical Tianjin report out of China, they give you no IOCs, and let me tell you, that's like the height of worthlessness, but also they don't expose themselves by virtue of saying, oh yeah, we saw this one plant that was in a, I don't know, somewhere in a Silk Road's country, and they used a Rust Trojan. Like, it seems like it swings both ways. What's the minimal requirement here?
I particularly don't have a real answer for that, but you know, it's yeah.
Every advanced country will have an ATP, right? So do we expect that every country is going to go out there and admit that certain ATPs are associated with that particular government?
No, I don't think so. No one's going to do that.
Then where is the transparency that we're like? Transparency is unachievable.
That's what I'm trying to find. That's the answer I'm trying to find. But yeah.
Would you think that this should be something that should be almost like a United Nations kind of thing?
You know, we all want to think that it's either this way or that way. Our mind would think, yeah, you know, when we read a certain article that's going to be published in social media or any news platform, our first chain of thought, yeah, it must be them. It was they did this. Yeah, they could have done this. They would have jumped here, and this is how they did it. But I don't have an answer for that. Don't have a straight answer for that.
If we can get this set up for APTs, can we also talk to the AV EDR vendors? Because they've been doing the same thing for the last 40 years. And still, there's no standardization there
Yes,
either
yep.
because they want notoriety for naming it.
Right.
So if we can fix the APT naming issues, let's get them involved too.
Yep. We have to start somewhere. Like I said, if we start having dialogues, hey, could you share with me, the information? I know it's impossible. It's impossible. No one's going to be like, hey, buddy, I've got some of these. You want some of these? No. But yeah, but the main thing is having dialogues.
So a comment about this, which I've observed within the Chinese space. So there's a rough mapping. Back in the day, APT was a rough mapping to MUCD of the actual part of the PLA, right? Nowadays, it's very different. Like the PLA is not 100% involved with most APTs. Like in the case of like the ISOOM League, they do APT-looking stuff. They're just a subcontractor. Maybe they get money from the government, but it's not a binary. There's no MUCD to tie to them because, the contract in a lot of places. So maybe this is a continuum rather than a binary when we get down to the state sponsorship.
And further to that, it gets handed down. It gets handed down.
It boils down to follow the money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's handed down and it's always funded. But the thing is, when you involve money in politics, it makes for a very bad combination. So yeah, I mean, if there's no further question, guys, we can.
Last call. Amar, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
again,